I was 23 when I first heard her voice, though I would not admit that for another 10 years. My name is Tran Khai, and I was born in a fishing village on the southern coast of Vietnam, not far from the mouth of the Mekong. My father was a fisherman, and his father before him. We knew the sea the way other men know the backs of their own hands. Every current, every monsoon shift, every hidden reef that could tear a hull open like a tin can. But we also knew the old warnings, the ones the older women whispered when the moon was high and the squid boats flickered their green lights across the black water. Cô ấy đang ở ngoài đó thay vào say. She is out there. They never said her name. You don't name what you fear. You only speak of the shape, Hindong, a woman's silhouette glimpsed between waves, a pale arm rising from phosphorescent foam, a song that starts in your ears but feels like it's crawling into your ribs. I never believed. Not really. Sailors get superstitious when they're bored, I told myself. The ocean plays tricks on tired eyes. You stare at the horizon for 12 hours, and your brain will start inventing patterns where there are none. A face in the spray, a body in the swell. Ten I met Tengui Dan Babin, the woman of the sea. It happened on a night I will never forget, though I have tried. God knows I have tried. I was first mate on the Thuyen Rome, a 40-meter trawler out of Phan Thiet. We were running a 3-day route through the Spratly waters, heading toward a known squid ground. 7 men on board, Captain Long, old and half-deaf in his left ear from a burst eardrum decades ago. Bin, the engine man, who never spoke more than 3 words at a time. Young Min, who had only been at sea for 8 months and still got seasick in choppy water. And 3 others whose names I still carry in my mouth like stones. It was the 3rd night. No moon. The stars were so thick they looked like someone had thrown a net over the sky and couldn't pull it back in. The sea was glassy, unnaturally calm, the kind of calm that makes old sailors uneasy. The diesel engine thrummed beneath our feet, and the navigation lights cut 2 small wounds of red and green into the darkness that I was on watch. 2 a.m., maybe later. My eyes were heavy, but I knew better than to close them. I remember looking at the radar. Nothing for 12 miles. Just us, alone on the black plate of the South China Sea. Then the fog came. Not the normal kind, not that slow, creeping mist that rolls in from the east. This came from below, like the sea itself was exhaling. It was warm and smelled sweet, almost like frangipani flowers, which made no sense 100 miles from land. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in less than a minute. I pulled my collar up and called down to the wheelhouse. "Captain, we've got fog." "Thick." Captain Long grunted something through the intercom. "Keep the horn going." I reached for the fog signal button, but my hand stopped halfway. Because that's when I heard it. It was singing. No, that's not right. It was sounding. Something between a hum and a whisper, layered like 2 voices at once. It wasn't in Vietnamese, not exactly, but I understood it. That was the terrifying part. The words slid into my brain not through my ears, but through my skin, my bones, the soft meat behind my eyes. "Kai, Kai oi kam to te zai. Come see. My name." It said my name. I am not a coward. I have weathered typhoons that turned the sky green and the waves into moving mountains. I have pulled drowning men from the water and watched a crewmate bleed out on the deck from a snapped cable. But that voice made my knees unlock. My heart stuttered and restarted in a different rhythm. I walked to the port rail. The fog parted like a curtain being drawn aside. And there she was. She was standing on the water. No, not standing. Rising. The lower half of her body was still submerged, but what I could see was a woman's torso, pale as pearl, slick with seawater. Her hair was black and impossibly long, floating around her shoulders as if she were underwater even though she was above it. Her face was beautiful in the way a sharp blade is beautiful. High cheekbones, dark eyes that reflected the starlight like twin abysses, lips slightly parted. She was smiling, not a kind smile, a knowing one. The smile of someone who has seen 1,000 men make the same mistake and will watch the 1,000th first make it too. Lengua, she sighed. So cold. Won't you help me? Her voice was warm. That was the trick of it. The water around her was black and cold, but her voice felt like a blanket. Like home. Like my mother's kitchen when I was 7 years old, and she was frying fish, and the rain was tapping at the window. I reached out my hand. Something stopped me. Not a sound, not a voice, a vibration. A low thrum that I felt in my chest before I heard it. The foghorn. Captain Long had triggered it remotely from the wheelhouse. The deep, mournful blast cut through the air like a physical thing, and in that instant the woman's face twitched. For just a second, less than a blink, the mask slipped. I saw what was underneath. It wasn't a face anymore. It was something that had arranged itself to resemble a face, the way a mimic octopus arranges its body to look like a sea snake. The eyes were too far apart. The mouth opened too wide, hinged not like a jaw but like a beak. And beneath the water where her waist should have been, something dark and massive shifted. A coil, a tail, a length of muscle that had no business belonging to anything human. Then the foghorn ended, and the face was beautiful again. Dungsha, she whispered, "Don't be afraid. I only want to keep you company." But I was afraid. I was soaked in it, drowning in it. My hand was still reaching toward her, and I couldn't pull it back. It was like my arm had forgotten it belonged to me. My feet were moving toward the rail. My hips were tilting forward, that I was going to climb over, that I was going to jump. A hand grabbed my collar and yanked me backward so hard I hit the deck and slid 3 feet. Young Min, seasick, skinny, terrified Min, who had come up for fresh air, and found me leaning halfway over the rail with my eyes wide and my mouth hanging open. "Anh Kai," he shouted. "Anh Kai, không có gì đâu cả." There's nothing there. I scrambled to my feet and looked over the rail. The fog was gone. The sea was calm. The stars were still scattered across the sky like scattered rice, and the woman was nowhere to be seen. But something else was. About 200 meters to port, half submerged and dark, was a reef. I knew that reef. Every fisherman in the province knew that reef, the Rang Ka, the fish's teeth. A jagged spine of coral that had torn open a dozen hulls over the years. It was marked on every chart in red ink, and we were drifting straight toward it. The current had shifted. While I had been standing at the rail, mesmerized, the Thuyan Rong had turned without anyone steering. The autopilot was off. The wheel was spinning loose in the wheelhouse. Captain Long was slumped over the console, snoring, not asleep but taken, his face slack and his breathing shallow. The other crewmen were the same, been curled up in the engine room, the others lying on their bunks with their eyes open but unseeing. Only Min had been spared, because Min had been below deck, vomiting into a bucket, his ears plugged with cotton wool against the engine noise. The woman's song hadn't reached him. I grabbed the wheel and cranked the engine to full reverse. The Thuyan Rong shuddered, groaned, and stopped just 50 meters from the teeth. I could hear the coral scraping against the hull, a sound like fingernails on a blackboard, but we didn't breach. We didn't sink. We were lucky. Or something let us go. I didn't sleep for 3 days after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Not the beautiful one, the other one. The one with the eyes that didn't match and the jaw that opened the wrong way. And I heard her voice, not singing now but laughing. A low, wet sound like water draining from a sinking boat. The other crewmen woke up confused, with headaches and no memory of what had happened. Captain Long retired a month later. He wouldn't say why. He just shook his head when anyone asked, and walked away with his good ear turned toward the ground. Min quit the sea entirely. He's a mechanic in Saigon now. He doesn't talk about that night either, but sometimes when we drink coffee together, I see him look at me with a question in his eyes. He wants to know what I saw, and I want to tell him, but the words won't come, because some things once seen can't be spoken. They live under your tongue like a hook you swallowed, and every time you try to pull them out, they tear you open again. I am 53 now. I still fish. I still go out on the water because the sea is in my blood and there is no landlocked life for me. But I have learned things that I have learned that the Nuoi Dan Ba Bien is not one creature. She is many. She is a shape that wears the same mask. Te fit shum fodom bing ding kun her ba ngu. Te lady op te fit. The elders in Quang Nai say she was once a woman, a bride thrown into the sea by jealous rivals, who drowned and became something else. The Catholic fishermen cross themselves and call her a demon. But I have my own theory now, after 30 years of watching and listening and keeping my mouth shut, that I think she is hunger. Not her hunger, ours. The sea's hunger. The deep places of the ocean have no mouths, no voices, no hands. But they want. They have wanted for millions of years. And sometimes when the conditions are right, the moon, the current, the loneliness of a man far from shore, that wanting condenses into a shape. A shape that looks like what we want to see. A shape that calls to us not with magic, but with the simplest, most terrible thing in the world, the promise of not being alone. She blocks the sea routes not out of malice, but because shipping lanes are where the lonely men are. She distracts sailors because a distracted sailor makes mistakes. She makes mistakes that end with steel and wood and bone sinking down to the dark places where the wanting lives. And then the wanting is fed. Last year, a new boy joined my crew, 18 years old, eager, bright-eyed. He laughed when the old men told their ghost stories. Science, he said. Everything is science. I didn't argue with him. You can't argue with the young. They have to learn their own way. One night, on a calm sea with a new moon, he was standing watch. I was below, pretending to sleep. At 2 a.m., I heard him go quiet. Not relaxed quiet, absent quiet. The kind of quiet that means a man has left his body and is somewhere else. I went up the ladder without making a sound. He was at the rail, leaning forward, one hand reaching out toward the water. His face was slack, peaceful, dreaming. And there, 30 meters off the bow, standing on the black water with her long hair floating and her pale arms outstretched, was the shape. She was looking at me. She remembered me. Kai, she whispered, and I felt it in my chest like a second heartbeat. Lo Guakong Dup. Long time no see. The boy's foot went up onto the rail. I had a choice. I could grab him like Min grabbed me. I could yank him back and break the spell and watch her face twist into that other thing, that dark and terrible thing, before she sank beneath the waves. Or I could let him go. Let him feed the hunger. Let the wanting have what it wanted. I grabbed him. Of course I grabbed him. What kind of question is that? He fell backward, hit his head on the deck, and woke up crying. He didn't know why he was crying. He just was. I held him by the shoulders until the shaking stopped. And when he looked at me with those young, confused eyes, I said the only thing I could say. Don't look at the water at night. Not ever. Do you understand? He nodded. He didn't understand. But he would, or he wouldn't live long enough to grow old. The woman is out there still. I know this. I have seen her twice more in the years since that first night. Once in a squall off the Paracel Islands, once in the calm waters near Condau. Each time she looks the same, beautiful, waiting, patient, that she does not age. She does not forget. She simply is like the tide and the wind and the cold, dark pressure of the deep. Sometimes on bad nights, I dream that she comes for me again. Not as a monster, but as a memory. She stands at the foot of my bed and asks me the same question, over and over in her soft, warm, terrible voice. Kaioi, aren't you lonely? And in the dream, I never answer. Because the truth is yes. The truth is that every man who lives long enough on the sea carries a loneliness that nothing on land can touch. And maybe, that loneliness is the only door she needs. So if you sail the waters of Vietnam, if you find yourself on a dark night with no moon and a fog that smells of flowers, do not listen. Do not look. Do not reach out your hand. Because she is there. She is always there. And she knows your name.